This is Terry Timothy with Timothy Educational Solutions, just bringing you a nugget as it pertains to what it means to be a U.S. public school administrator. I have a little bit of experience in this. I was able to spend 4 years of my career before a prolonged sickness as a public school administrator at a wonderful school in Low Country, South Carolina. It was one of the most rewarding experiences of my life. However, I do find that public school administration in the United States of America, particularly in Title I neighborhoods, is terribly misunderstood by just about everyone, from the federal level all the way down to the community level, and it is certainly not understood in the world because there is nothing else like it. And so I just wanted to provide some clarity for stakeholders of all levels, particularly for parents and students, about the difficulties that come with administrating schools, public schools, in particularly difficult communities where they say that there is a high at-risk population, which essentially means that there are people there that have many different needs that are outside of the school's purview that ultimately become the school's responsibility. Okay, so I just want to answer a question that so many people find puzzling, and that question is, why can't the school produce students that achieve proficiency on an exam? Why is it that schools, particularly schools in at-risk communities, seem to be unable to get 7 out of 10 students to achieve proficiency every single school year on these exams? It's a good question, because mathematically you're thinking, okay, you have my child for 12 years. Why is it in 12 years' time you cannot get that student, at least 7 out of 10 of those students, across the proficiency line? It's a great question, and I want to answer that question with a piece of truth. And the truth is that schools are no longer just academic institutions, even though they're supposed to be. Schools are now everything, and school administrators are overseeing and directly involved in the everything. And what does the everything mean? Because if you don't know what the everything is, then you're probably one of those people that is involved in arguments about budgets, and arguments about whether or not money should follow students, and arguments about whether or not teachers or administrators should be paid more, and arguments about tenure, because you don't understand that the school is everything. And that means that the school is not just educating students for academic and social proficiencies to pursue their vocational dreams, to achieve intellectual flexibility for the new work world. The school is not just doing that. The school is also running food banks so that families don't go hungry on the weekends. The school is also funding free breakfast, lunch, and snack for every child 5 days a week, which means that teachers are distributing that. The school is also providing free at-home computers and hotspots for students, and the school is also servicing those devices on site. So then the school is also managing the IT. The school is also providing students with opportunities to visit colleges. That comes out of the budget. The school is also providing opportunities for students to have free tutoring in the afternoons or virtually. So that also comes out of the budget because the teachers have to be paid. Okay. The school is also administering all those assessments that students need in order to get into college, in order to get scholarships. They are assisting the military in administering the ASVAB for kids to go into the military by cutting it out of the schedule. Okay. The school is also making sure that there are parenting classes for parents who need assistance in managing the responsibilities of parents. The school is also managing English language learning programs and making sure that a certain percentage of students are getting the services they need to learn the language, and that a certain percentage of teachers are certified in providing that level of service for those students. The school is also managing special education services on a wide gamut of special education needs. And so that means that there is accountability in place for that. So this is just the short list. This is not the long list. A short list. The school is also assisting students who are suicidal and partnering with local services who are trying to prevent suicide or trying to prevent violence in schools, trying to prevent violence in homes. The school has taken on the role of whatever the community needs. And as a result, the school administrator is overseeing everything. And so now the school administrator is not just administering help at the school for helping students achieve academic proficiencies, but the school administrator is administrating or overseeing city services. Okay? This is the reality. Unfortunately, this reality takes away from the main thing. And this was very hard for me to understand as a young administrator, as a new administrator. And I sat down, I spoke to a colleague of mine and said, what are we going to do? We cannot achieve the levels of proficiency that are expected from us and do all these other things well. It's a fact. It is a statistical fact. Administrators sit down, make a list of all the things that you are overseeing and that you are also directly involved in, right? Like home visits and ensuring that your nursing staff has a certain level of certification to administer medications, that there is money in the budget for the nursing staff. There's now money in the budget for the mental health services person, that you're expanding your offerings. Make a list of all the things you are overseeing in your school, and then consider the amount of man hours required to manage all of those things well. And you're going to find that the math is against you. It is impossible for you to do all those things well. It is impossible. And if you're doing it well at the sacrifice of your health and the management of your personal life, then you're really not doing it well at all, because you're burning yourself out. So like I was saying, this colleague sat me down and she said, well, the secret is to delegate. And I didn't understand that. And I think that when most of us in administration hear the word delegate, particularly those of us who are A-type personalities, who are used to making sure that things run a certain way for a certain period of time, at a certain time, on schedule, when you hear the word delegate, you hear it as if it means shirking your responsibility. But that's not what it means at all, because there are certain services that don't belong to schools. They belong to city agencies. And at some point, if we're ever going to get back to the main thing, which is providing students with the necessary level of schooling to be academically and socially flexible for their vocational life choices, because that's what schooling is really, really for. Schooling, the job of schooling, which is a function of academic institutions, is to provide students with the opportunity to obtain proficiencies in many different relevant subject areas, so that when they graduate from school, they are able to take their pick of fields where they would like to work and develop themselves, because they have the basic proficiencies to pursue whatever they choose. When we don't make that main thing the main thing, what happens is that we end up graduating students who are well fed, who feel loved, who have a strong sense of self, but who cannot read well enough to complete the job application testing that comes along with trying to work at even minimum wage jobs. And so we're doing so well in so many areas, but society is only going to judge us, the schooling system, based upon what our main thing is supposed to be. And the main thing is supposed to be that we provide students with an avenue by which they achieve academic proficiencies and the social proficiencies that are linked to being able to grow into an academic and cognitive flexibility for the new workplaces. That's what schools are supposed to do, so that when Johnny or Jane graduates, they have enough English, math, science, and social studies ability, and enough experience in the arts, and enough experience in communication, that they can go out into the world and make their mark in whatever field they ultimately choose to work in as a member of a productive, hopefully productive society. So if that's the main thing, administrators, then our time is better spent delegating the other city services back to the agencies that are actually responsible for them. And your time is better spent investing in the improvement or the perpetual functioning of those agencies, so that you can continue to do your job as a school administrator, which is to help teachers, help students, achieve proficiencies that are going to empower them to live their best lives when they leave the school building. That's the administrator's job. It's going to be very hard to put down the other things because you see the immediate results of the other things, and those other things are so important. But if you keep doing 50 out of 52 things well, I guarantee you that the 2 things that you don't do as well that end up on the bottom of the pile are going to be student proficiency and self-care, not just for yourself, but also for your staff. It's going to trickle out into the building. It's going to affect the culture of your home. It's going to affect the culture of your school. And your community will love you, but your students will fail. So a decision has to be made. And that means that, yes, the way that you manage the umpteen services that you are currently overseeing is going to change, because you're going to have to delegate that back into the city where it belongs. And yes, that's going to mean sometimes that you may have to be a part of spearheading the creation of certain types of agencies in some communities, but you can't run them. You can't run those agencies and run your school well and manage your life well. So this is the conversation that we have to have about schools if U.S. public schools are going to return to viable status as an industry, as an institution that functions to do what it should do. And until this conversation is had honestly, without people being judgmental about all the things that schools are now expected to do, it is going to be impossible to make proficiency